So this wrath, the Hindu or Brahmanical wrath against the untouchable, the outcast, is actually, according to Ambedkar and Louis Dubong and many other scholars, even Dr. K. Sugadan in Kerala, he has worked on this issue. And from Ambedkar to Sahodaran Ayyappan and K. Sugadan in Kerala, they view it as a real wrath against the religious other, the Buddhist, the Mlechha. So the Mlechas have become, after the Middle Ages, most of them have become the untouchables, or they have gone into the Muslim fold. So this is actually the wrath against the real Mlechha, the Buddhists, because all the untouchables, the Avarnas, belong to the Buddhist tradition. According to Ambedkar's 1946 work, who are the untouchables, how they became so. Caste was a punishment by Brahmanism because the Bahujans never submitted to Brahmanical patriarchy and its meta-referential structure. So it was a punishment to create these broken men who were outcasted outside the village. So from Ambedkar to Sahodaran to K. Sugadan, and even I am working on that issue of Buddhism in Kerala and South India. So it's really this wrath, this Dalitization of the Muslim, or this anger is actually the wrath against the Buddhists. How do you view this?
I think it's a very important question that you've raised. To go back to some of these sentimental renditions of Hinduism that we've been speaking about, that fundamental to Hinduism has been violence towards the marginal and the subordinate from its very inception. And this is something I shan't elaborate on. Most of us know the instances. And this has been brought out in a wonderful new magisterial history by Upinder Singh in a history, in a book, Political Violence in Ancient India, which was published 2 years ago by Harvard. So one has to understand violence as a structural feature of Hinduism. And when I use the word Hinduism, I use it within quotes. The idea of Hinduism comes up only recently, but within the forms of Hindu religion, which is why you have Bhakti and various other, or even the Sikh movement, which arise in opposition to the idea of Hinduism. So central, if you think about the fact of violence and the subordination of the marginal as being crucial, then we are led back to earlier histories, such as the violence practiced epistemologically, physically, and territorially against Buddhists in India, which leads to in some sense, the kind of vanishing of Buddhism from the public imagination. Buddhism comes to be associated in most minds with Buddhist travelers who come from China. And if you go to China and Japan, they refer to India as the Western Heaven, from where Buddhism originated. And it is only as late as the 19th century that you have the histories of indigenous Buddhism surfacing with people like Yodhidas and so on. There's a whole lot of work of the rediscovery of Buddhism among the Tamil non-caste thinkers. So if one thinks about the present status of the Muslim in India, you think about the continuing status of the untouchable and the Dalit. We also have to think about the prior history of Buddhism, which led almost to its extirpation from India, and very, in an effective sense, the very reason why the Indian national flag can have the charkha, that Buddhism can be invoked as in various ways, the Sanchi Stupa, the Ashoka pillar, Ashoka himself as an exemplar, is because in the national imagination, Buddhism is a phenomenon that is over, right? In the upper caste. Exactly. It is history. Yeah. But for the Dalit and for the subordinate in southern India, Buddhism has always offered an alternative imagination, an imagination of freedom, equality, rationality, as opposed to the superstition, the violence, and the unreflective hierarchy that is Hinduism. So I think it's important to go back to those histories. That what we see being enacted on the Dalit and the Muslim now is part of a long history of violence against the subordinate that is endemic and unreflected upon within the formations that we know as Hinduism.